Hi, I'm Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Director of Event Programming at MediaPost, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women marketers today. And with me is Lindsay Radkoski. She is the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer in the US at Wendy's. Hey, how are you, Lindsay?
Yeah, hey Lisa, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today.
No, I am so excited to have you. I always say, like, I do my snooping always in the beginning. And the more I read about you, the more impressed I am. So I'm really happy that you were able to take time to do this.
Oh, thank you.
Well, and one of the things to add, make it you that much more impressive, aside from the work you do, but also for that work, you won the Change Maker Award from Women's Food Service Forum. Also, you were from QSR Magazine. You were recognized as Young Restaurant Leader to Watch. I mean, these are pretty cool things. Very good. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Honors aside, and I love the change maker phrase. Like that's such a cool markation. For me, those were so exciting because both of them were about recognition of what I had done, but also like the progress or opportunity with what's ahead. And I think about that, especially the change maker is not accepting status quo, like redefining what it means to get work done, have an impact on a business and the results. So yeah, thank you.
Well, no, and I mean, also, I guess I want to ask about Changemaker a little bit, but also just, the young restaurant leader to watch. I mean, you are in a position for someone I don't know your age exactly. Looking at you, you seem very young. So to be in this kind of position for an organization like Wendy's, like, how amazing is that for you? I mean, do you pinch yourself?
I do. I have moments where I'll be talking to friends or parents, especially my parents. And when you have the opportunity sometimes to step back from the day to day and realize kind of where you are, the people and the team that I get to work with, and the amazing brand that we have at Wendy's, sometimes it feels surreal. And then I remind myself that I have also worked super hard to get here and had a lot of people really help me and invest in me and advocate for me. And all that, was done very intentionally. So while it feels too good to be true, I know it's not because even though I might look young, I have some of the wrinkles to show for the work too.
Well, and I by no means in it all imply like that you didn't deserve or earn this.
Oh, I know.
Because no, and I know you don't think that, but it's honestly because I do hate that. Like sometimes people do say that when they see you reach a certain success, especially women,
Yep.
they you sometimes hear, oh, you're so lucky, or right place for it. I don't know. There's
Yes.
excuses sometimes made for it. And it's
It
like,
all happens for a reason. Or
yeah, something like that. So that's why, I never want to make you or anyone else feel like, because I know the work that goes into all of this, but just the fact is, I think having that younger, that youth kind of mentality adds a lot to the C-suite, I would think.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, at Wendy's, we're very fortunate to have a diverse group in all different ways, and age is one of those factors to be, a voice around the table. But it helps me approach things from a slightly different angle. The phase of life that I'm in with the age of my kids is a good reminder, I think, to everybody that we're all in different places. And one of the things I love the most about the culture we have at Wendy's is I can bring those elements to my job every single day. And I think it helps make me a more effective leader, not just for the senior tables that I sit around, but more importantly with my team, because they know, it wasn't that long ago that I was on maternity leave and I get it. And I know what you're going through, and just connecting. One of the things that's so important to me is to connect with people as people first, not as employees, not as a brand manager, but as a person. And I think, being very open about where I am in life and what I'm also working through as a person, as a mom, as a CMO, is all a part of the transparency that's so important to me.
No, and it's all part of the package, and as I said, I wanted to go back to the change maker idea. And you talked a little bit about what that means in terms of work and at your job, but I'm curious in terms of life in general, and it could be in terms of your professional career, but on a personal level, or maybe at home, you talk about all these different hats you do wear, as a person. What does change maker mean to you in that sense? Not necessarily how you do a campaign or something like that.
Yeah. For me, it's really about like redefining norms and not accepting status quo or anything that I think has to be the way something's done. And there are a couple of personal examples and some professional ones that I could mention. I think, the first is you were doing, as you've done, I know, as I've listened to some of your podcasts, some snooping. I don't have the most on the professional side, maybe the most typical background for someone who gets to a chief marketing officer position. And part of that is I spent a lot of time in finance and analytics, spent a little bit of time in investor relations. And I relate that to Changemaker because it's allowed me to bring a new lens and layer to how I lead a marketing team and how I go about the marketing work. I like to say, like, I'm a marketer who knows my way around a P&L, and that is a superpower in many ways. We're all just like you, work with BTS, the business, we're in businesses, and businesses are about making money, and we have shareholders and boards and franchisees who are our stakeholders. And one of the things I love the most is connecting what we do with customers to how we make money. I'm always reminding myself and my team in our business, we don't make money unless a customer takes a different action than they did today. And not looking at things in silos is one of the ways where I think I've been able to make a really big impact and change Wendy's. Another just on the personal side, because I know you like to go there too, and part of peel the curtain back.
Not that the work isn't fun, but
it's all fun. On the personal side, I've made this crazy decision to train for a pretty big triathlon.
Wow.
And this year it's actually in less than a month. And I remember when I first signed up, I'm like, I can't do this. Like, people in my position with the workload I have, the age of my kids, there's no possible way. And then I reminded myself, like, no, that's not what I'm about. Like, I'm about showing where things are possible, maybe if they haven't been done before. And so that's just a personal example of thinking differently about things that haven't been done before, not letting things feel like they're impossible, and pushing through.
Well, the triathlons, because it's not just, any like running marathons, all of those. But when you talk about is it in the ocean that you're doing the swimming part?
It's in a big lake, so one of the Great Lakes, Lake Erie.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Too many shark sightings.
No sharks. But recently I had the chance to be on a work trip with a core group of agency leaders and our leaders, some of our marketing leadership team here at Wendy's. And the training schedule is so intense that I knew, and it was a big week because I'm building towards the race, I couldn't miss some of my key workouts. So speaking of sharks, I went open water swimming in the ocean at 7 a.m. and the whole time I was like scanning for sharks. But I got my swim in and felt very accomplished for the day. But yeah, some of the pieces of the commitment and the hours, I think, have some people thinking I might be a little cuckoo.
Excuse me. Oh my gosh. I'm phobia. I have a huge phobia. Not just, everyone is afraid of sharks. Come on. Of course. Well, I guess there are those who love to study them, and so I won't say everyone, but in general, it's healthy. But no, I have a phobia. Like, seriously, when I was younger, I couldn't jump in the pool alone and swim. Like, if people were in there, but the kicking would just be like, oh my gosh, and I would literally fly out of the water. Someone talking about being, around a shark, I you need to stop. I'm
These days, I enjoy a lake swim a lot more than the ocean. Like, I don't know if it's as an adult versus a kid, but now that I know what's in the ocean, it's I can't relax the same way.
I for those who do, we need it, to study them, or those who enjoy it, like going shark, not hunting, shark, when they go watching them underneath and scuba diving. I'm like, yeah, that won't be me. I have your idea of just do anything, but I draw the line with sharks. So, well, I want to get back to, as far as you've mentioned about, financing, which is your background initially, and then you kind of crossed over to marketing. Let's go back to when you were graduating, when you were just, starting out. What was finance where you saw your you going, or was it else somewhere else? And also just even QSR, you've predominantly been in the QSR industry as far
Yep.
as your work. Was that on the radar? Like, talk about what your aspirations were and how it sort of evolved to where you are.
Yeah. So when I think back to graduating, I knew I wanted to be in the business world. I had no idea the specifics of that. Both my parents were accounting and finance, so I was very familiar with that space. I was good at math, so people, encouraged me in my
Mhm.
life to go that route. When I was in college, I was a hostess and then a server at Longhorn Steakhouse for 4.5 years. And that's where I really fell in love with the restaurant industry. I just saw the ability to connect with people. So it's one of the things that is so important to me today. Like, there are, for all of us, no matter what we do, mundane, administrative sort of things about our work. But if finding a higher purpose for that work is something that really motivates me. So all the way back to being a server, I used to love knowing that someone walked in the front door and asked for my section. Like, can I sit in Lindsay's section? Or, Lindsay's our normal server, because that meant I was giving them something that they didn't think they could get elsewhere, and just finding those personal connections, those moments to make somebody's, whether it was just their meal or their day or their week, a little bit brighter. I found so much joy in. And then personally, I love food. Like, not always like crazy culinary trends necessarily. I love eating. So I'm always worried about, where's my next meal going to come from? The team here at Wendy's jokes when we travel that I start asking questions about the next meal before we're done with the current meal. And just the intersection of how food allows people to have shared moments is something I find really, really cool. And I think I figured out early, just based on some people I knew and an internship that I had, that the restaurant industry was a much bigger industry than I was aware of as I started to think about where to have or where to start my career. So I started at Bob Evans, which is a regional family dining chain, also headquartered here in Columbus, Ohio. That led to Wendy's, and I've never looked back. The thing I think is so cool with this idea of whether it's a meal, a day, a week, making someone's life a little bit better. People eat all the time. So compared to if you're in the car industry or the insurance industry, not that there's anything wrong with those are purchases that people make. They're high involvement purchases, but they're purchases that people make maybe once every 5 to 7 years. And we get the chance, people, all Americans, lots of people around the globe eat 3 to 5, maybe more times a day. So the frequency of the category just means we get to have, in my opinion, that much more of an impact on people. And that's what's really led me to the restaurant industry and kept me very involved.
Yeah, no, and I do think when you talked about it earlier with the finance, you bring that different lens to the CMO role. And but other CMO people that I've mentioned, that I've spoken with, they sort of say they had suddenly wear different hats. Like, they were, say, that marketer, and then they had to then look at the big picture and have, where when they were maybe the VP of marketing, they were like, what budget? Like, let's do, what we need to do. Whereas when you have the CMO, you have to wear that hat. Whereas you kind of came into that naturally. And so I do see how that would be, you crossed over to marketing, so you also did both. But I see how that would even be kind of put you perfect in line for what you are doing in the CMO role. So
Yeah, it's an interesting comparison, because you're right. For me, it wasn't that when I moved into this role, all of a sudden there were new things I'd never done before. I'd done them before, but I'd also done them from the other side of the table. I'd done them from the finance person's role, or the finance player on the team. So because of that, I have a great rapport with our finance group today. They're one of, I love working with that team, and I found that the tighter we can be, the more that we can do together. And it's all about growing the business and getting consumers to love us even more than they do today. We say turn our fans into friends. So turn it from, you think about the Taylor Swift concerts are like all the talk right now. So, most Taylor Swift fans, that relationship is a one-way thing. They're a fan of Taylor Swift, and she knows some of them, but maybe not all of them. For us, we want to turn those fans into friends. We want it to be more of a relationship and a two-way thing. And that's what I'm super excited. And as a team, we're spending a lot of time on now.
Yeah, I actually noticed that, when I do my snooping and on your posts, of course, I'm reading them, and the way you did refer to, customers as fans, and just, wanting that kind of relationship which is really great. I'm curious because, obviously marketing industry it can have its ups and downs, lots of, like it's a roller coaster in many ways. Sometimes it's really, oh my gosh, it's exciting, moving. And then sometimes it has that, oh, what's happening here? So there's definitely, you're coming across different challenges. I'm curious, was there something, and let's take it again to the more personal side, but with the career, was there that challenge, or maybe it was just a momentous moment within, career that you sort of took a step back and were like, what am I going to do now? Or maybe, how am I going to get through this?
Yeah. It's funny, like, the setbacks or barriers or things that we didn't see coming for a lot of us. The year of 2020 brought a lot of those, and a lot of reflection, doing things we didn't think we would do before. But for me, Lisa, just when you mentioned like setback and taking a big step back, there was a moment at Wendy's. So I mentioned I was at Bob Evans. I came from Bob Evans to Wendy's to join the investor relations team with a gentleman who was the vice president and was coming over. So he called me and was like, you would love Wendy's. Like, the brand's growing, thriving. It's much bigger than Bob Evans. So future opportunities should be more for you. And unfortunately, he passed away just a couple years into the time that I was at Wendy's. And it was an interesting, I'm like, I feel my chest tightening just talking about it. It was an interesting moment of being, high achievement oriented, results oriented, career oriented, just this moment to realize there's so much more in the world and to the world and to our life and our purpose than just our job. But to experience that on an emotional level with coworkers was a really strange thing. Like, usually, loss like that, if it's a grandparent or a parent, you're grieving in your personal life with personal people and family. And in this case, we were, as a Wendy's team, grieving together. And so there were all these self-reflections about how I spend my time and meaning of life, but also a deepened loyalty to Wendy's, because I saw, senior leaders, male, female, all ages, very vulnerable with emotions and in tears and not sure what to do. So for me, it was just one, if I look back at what felt like obstacles or setbacks, but also that propelled me forward in a different way, or in some way kind of shifted maybe the course of my life. That was definitely one. That gentleman, I owe being at Wendy's to him. And so I always think about, what am I like? Would somebody feel that same way about me? And am I spending my time back to like higher purpose to make people's lives better that are on my team today or who I interact with? So I came up with this personal, I call it my mission, kind of like a mantra around better. It's called the better for being here. It's just my challenge to myself, like whether it's a person bagging my groceries or an Uber driver or my team meeting. I want to make sure in small ways and big ways, I am leaving things better than they were before I was involved. And I don't do it perfectly, but I really look back to kind of that moment as a time period where I decided to approach things a bit differently.
I love that, better for being here. I think we all forget that, sometimes, we can just have that in our mindset. It would be so much better. And you also brought it to your work. I know that is, again, didn't you started a program at work? Talk about that a little bit, and it's almost paying it forward, really, is part of it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So I had the chance. It was in 2000, I think 13. I sometimes think about things like what based on when my kids were born. So I'm like, was it before or after Harper? And I know it was right around when she was born. So Wendy's, had been through a number of changes and just different chapters of history. And when I joined, at that time, I was in a team and a function where there were most primarily men, and a lot of meetings where the different people at the table were men. And I thought, man, I'd been involved. You mentioned earlier the Women's Food Service Forum. I had been involved with the Women's Food Service Forum. I'd been exposed to women in very senior leadership positions. For me, there was something very desirable about that. Like when you see it, it can be possible. And exposure helped me in a big way kind of chart my own journey. But as I joined Wendy's, there weren't that many women in senior leadership. So I put together this white paper on how I thought we needed to start a women's group. And I asked, it was almost like not a blind date, but I asked a woman, her name's Abigail Pringle, and she's on our senior leadership team still today. I asked her if she would go out to lunch with me and listen to my pitch for why I thought we should have a women's employee resource group. And she said, you know what? I've been thinking about the same thing. You clearly have a passion for it. I do too. Let's make it happen. So the two of us put together an action plan on like the work I would do. She would be the executive sponsor. She'd get all the support. And now we have over 100 members of that employee resource group today. It was the first employee resource group at Wendy's, and now we have 7 across all different employee groups. Each of our senior leadership team members is an executive sponsor. And it's really, Wendy's has always had a great culture, all about people. We say it's a work family. But I think in today's world, especially where people need a place where they can be open and transparent and safe, and others need a place where they can grow and learn about groups that aren't exactly like them. It's really put more of a framework and formality around that. So a big place where you're right. For me, that, better for being here mindset, I was able to put into action in a pretty big way.
Yeah, no, it sounds it. And I'm curious in the sense of, so when you are, and I do think, especially in your industry, when you said that, like there haven't always been a lot of women in senior level positions. I think that's changing. I've seen that. We have a
Yep.
QSR summit where before I was with Media Post, there were very few women in the room. And the last one I believe was like 95% women, in senior level positions. So I think that has been changing. I think that's wonderful. And it's probably due to, people like yourself who sort of tried to help women, because I think women get into the industry. It's not that it was shortage of women. It's just they didn't necessarily, as you said, see that woman in that kind of position, or be able to figure out how to evolve that. So talk about like someone starting out, a woman starting out. You mentioned your daughter.
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
I have 2. My daughter is 9. Her name's Harper. And then my son, his name's Coulter. He's 7.
Okay, so Harper comes to you, not quite, give her a little time.
Yeah, for a couple years.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years. But no, how would someone wanting to be in this industry, what would you advise Hunter?
Yeah. Well, I think almost regardless of industry, as I think about if somebody was, starting where I was or starting to go down a similar path today, I would just tell them, like, be convicted in your vision and purpose, and also be willing to adjust as you go. Like, stay open to new experiences, because you never know what will come from them. And the other would be, you cannot underemphasize the importance of relationships. And as I've grown into different positions in my career, relationships and the collaboration that can come from them, it's invaluable. And I try to make sure I have people around me who will, build into me and fill my cup, but also call me out when they see me doing things that are maybe inconsistent with how they know I want to live my mission, or not working best for my team. Like if I always say, like, if nobody's giving me feedback, that's a bad sign. And I would encourage my daughter, my son, anybody, to make sure that they know you're never going to have it all figured out. And if you got to be like smart enough and humble enough to know that, and then strategic enough to surround yourself with people and build relationships where people care enough about you because they know you care about them, that they're willing to give you the feedback where you may have blind spots or opportunity.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, you said you did your snooping about watching some of my BTS interviews, and I usually like to have some fun. So not that this all wasn't, but I like it throwing like a game or something, whatever. So you can't not, when you think of Wendy's, what do you think of? Where's the beef? I mean, that is like the most iconic slogan. Yep. Everyone knows it. It's just, I don't care how old you are, you've probably heard it, or it's been.
We always, you got to say it that way, Lisa.
Okay. Where's the beef?
Yes, there we go.
So, and that was introduced in 1984, and it's still being something that's referenced today. So I think that's really amazing. So what I want to do is test your knowledge on slogans, iconic slogans throughout the past years. And you tell me who the brand is. Okay, so you ready? Are you up for it?
Ready, let's do it.
Right. Just do it.
Perfect segue. Nike.
Perfect segue. We could have planned that. Because you're worth it.
Ooh. Is it Dove chocolate?
No, it's a blonde woman. What was her name? She was on. I forget, but anyway, it's L'Oreal. I'm trying to go through the Sybil Shepherd. Sybil Shepherd.
Okay.
I think there was someone else before her, but I think she made it anyway. Okay. Yeah. Melt in your mouth, not in your hands.
Oh, M&Ms.
Yep. Okay, that was in 1949 or 50s.
They were so consistent for so long.
It started, I think it came out in 49, but then they made it a slogan in the 50s. I don't know. It was very contradictory, so I wanted to be accurate. Okay, good to the last drop.
Okay, it's either Folgers or Maxwell House.
Got it.
I think it's Maxwell House, right? Yeah.
1917. That came out. So yeah. So but yes, Maxwell House. I was about to give you the espresso martini clue. So okay. All right. Good. Oh, good. That it seemed easier before. Campbell's soup.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
I can see it on the can, on the red and white can, now that you say that. Okay. I don't know. I'm like 50-50 here.
Yeah. Well, no, I say you're about 70%. Okay. Here's the final one. This is for all of it. The quicker picker upper.
Swifter.
No.
Oh. The quicker picker upper.
It's the Bounty.
Bounty paper towels.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I gotta hear the jingle for that 60%, one.
I think now.
That rounds up to 100, right? That's
it's a pass. We'll say it's a pass-fail grade. Okay.
Perfect.
So I'm curious. So what do people get wrong about you?
Ooh. I'm like, where do I start? No, I think the biggest is probably, I had an advisor, like a close professional advisor recently tell me that I am tough and tender. I was like, what? And the more I thought about it, I was like, oh yeah, I like that. I'll embrace that. And I think in that is the juxtaposition of what people may get wrong about me, starting with the tender side. And I'm sure you can tell by just our conversation today, people are so important to me. And I tend to start all engagements and in relationships with getting to know someone as a person. And that means, what are you into? What's your history? What are your motivators? What's your family like? Where do you like to go on vacation? Because I believe in any good relationship comes with knowing that person, what makes them tick, and helping them do more of that. And yes, we're going to do business together along the way too, if it's a professional relationship. So I think because of that, people could really underestimate how competitive I am, how results driven I am, and just like very, very focused on, we got to achieve the business result. And when this woman played back to me tough and tender, it was like, wow, I guess that is, I always felt like those things were in conflict, but they don't have to be. Like they can live in the same person, and that's okay. And they can also live in the same moments. Like for me, and because I have such great relationships with the team here at Wendy's, it's great to have a work family where you can have fun. And it doesn't mean that my boss doesn't give me very direct feedback and that we don't have uncomfortable conversations, or that I don't do that with my team, but it almost makes those more meaningful because there's a loyalty to that person and like a shared commitment to the vision and the journey that we're on together. So I think what someone would get wrong was just like, man, she's approachable and she's empathetic. Like, how could she be that good of a business leader, like a tough, business leader, holding people accountable and achieving results? But I think the balance is actually something that is pretty unique, and it's what makes me me. So I've learned to embrace it.
I definitely think, and I think because people, I would think, can maybe, if they see, 'cause yes, you do seem like, oh, everybody's friend, you want to, get to know everyone and whatever. And then it may be surprising, maybe that first time when you're like, no, I need this today, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, so people can take advantage of that, so until they work with you and know you and say, all right, no, she is great until I don't produce or do what I need to do, if I slack off and that kind of thing. And I do think that sometimes that can happen when someone does come across in the way you do, that maybe initially people might think I can, oh, good, I can take long lunch or, whatever.
Right.
And obviously when it comes down to it, you're a complete professional and business does ultimately the bottom line. You have to get the work done.
Yeah. And I found that having conversations with teams or individuals, early in a relationship, or definitely at the beginning of every year, halfway through a year, we're checking in on what did we set out to achieve? How are we doing? And here are my expectations. The sooner that conversation can happen, it helps just demystify, like, is she gonna like crack the whip, or like, can we get by with things? But yeah, you're right about what it can produce or cause, but I think we're in a pretty good spot. And again, I think part of that's just for me learning to embrace the balance that I bring, whether it's finance and marketing can live together, and so can this idea of being tender but also being tough.
Well, I get that. That's completely. So luckily I didn't see your tough side when I was giving you your little quiz test. It could have gone way worse.
Yeah, that's why I asked them, like, so where are we on the numbers here? Is this a 50%? Are we a 60%?
I gave it a 60%, so we're good. I'm curious. Okay, so I know Wendy's, and you guys are very much about customer service and nostalgia, and I know that you just brought back, and we have a Wendy's there. That would be
well placed.
product placement, okay. But the strawberry frosty, you had brought that back, and you paired up with T-Pain, the rapper, to do a song, and so sort of it's that nostalgia, and then bringing it into today, so kind of giving that, but reminding people that knew it back when it was first. That brings that memory, but then also it introduces it to the new people today, new fans today. So I'm curious, just going with that and nostalgia, and it can't be something from Wendy's, but is there sort of that nostalgia food that you might go to, that comfort food, or something that you kind of look to, or brings back a memory?
Can't be Wendy's. Oh man. Food that brings back a memory. For me, maybe not a specific memory, but I'm a glutton for pizza. So I love all kinds of pizza. And I think part of it is it's just easy. You usually know what you're going to get. There are limited choices, even though there's endless toppings. For me, it's cheese or pepperoni, like pretty plain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one that I can share with my kids. So we just have a lot of fun connecting over food. We do like family date nights now with the four of us. And sometimes we pick the restaurant, sometimes the kids pick the restaurant. But but nothing with the power, I think, of nostalgia, like what we see with Frosty, like you mentioned, the T-Pain collab. It's amazing to talk to people. You meet somebody in an airport and they see Wendy's on my shirt or my backpack or my laptop, and they're like, oh, I used to, my grandpa used to buy me Frosties every time I used to go visit him. And it's really cool to have those personal stories come through. And the team that did the T-Pain collab, I think they found this like magic. Our team here at Wendy's that does creative and media and partnerships and works with our agency on that idea. Because both Frosty and that music have a nostalgia memory associated with them, it just went together perfectly. So I introduced my children to the Buy You a Frosty song, and it was really fun to think about like where I was in my life when that song came out, and then getting to share that with them today.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I want one more question. We have one, and I want to sort of go back to, okay, you grew up in Ohio and you had Wendy's Wednesdays with your friends. So I think that is so cool that you were doing that then, and now here we circle, I think that's really amazing. But I want to ask you if today you have a something Wednesday, or maybe not every week, but consistently with a group of friends, something that you can, always kind of can count on and you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's so crazy is one of the friends who was involved in Wendy's Wednesdays at Gahanna Lincoln High School, which is only 12 miles from this building, is one of the friends involved in one of my groups and rituals today, where I'm so blessed that she's still a part of my life. But I am probably 5 years ago, got involved with a group of women that run in my community. And so 3 or 4 days a week. So I'm lucky it's not just one day, it's a couple days. We run together in the morning, and it's amazing. Like there's a doctor in that group. There's a executive at a big bank here in town. There's teachers, there's stay-at-home moms, and the both physical and emotional fulfillment that I get from that ritual and the rhythm that we have together is truly special. I always say, like, with that group of women, we can solve anything, whether it's somebody's personal thing they're working through or a work thing. So that's one of those routines, not quite like what we were doing in high school at lunch at Wendy's, but one today that I just look forward to so much. And I know if for some reason I haven't been with the group for a couple weeks, my husband will say to me, like, you need to go run with the girls. Like you're wound a little tight. Like, why don't you go? You're missing the running group. So that's Lisa, that's the one I thought of when you talked about a similar thing, but in my adult life today.
That is awesome. I love that. I would love that. I mean, I like the running or jogging, let's say.
Yeah.
But I think it's because I love getting outside and being with people and just doing that kind of thing. So that sounds like an awesome experience. Lindsay, thank you so much. This has been incredible. And you've been so enjoyable to talk with. So thank you for doing it.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for having Wendy's, and really appreciate the time.
Yeah, well, and thank you for watching. And as I always say, if you have someone, if you woman marketer, brand marketer that you would love to have the curtain sort of pull back from, please let me know. I will do my best to get her. And again, Lindsay, thank you.